Have you ever wondered, those great big huge airplanes that are hanging out at the airport, like how do they manage to keep that nose wheel right on that center line? Stick around, I'll tell you the secret to that. Welcome to the superpilotish channel. My name's Graham Wilson, and today in my basement, I'll be telling you the good old superpilotish 5 tips on how to taxi like a pro. Let's get into it. Hey guys, like and subscribe, all that other fun YouTube stuff. But yeah, something I thought forever that I already did a show on this, but I didn't. It's like one of the first things you actually learn when you're learning how to fly a plane is you got to learn how to drive it around on the ground, right? So we call that taxiing. Anyways, I will tell you the 5 tips, and I even have a whiteboard to look really professional about this. Dun, 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 dun. Number 1, watch that speed. Don't taxi too fast. But why do we not want to taxi too fast? Well, if something goes wrong, it happens a lot quicker if you're going fast, right? So, yeah, that's one of the things that after a while, you might have been flying for a while, and the taxi speed, you kind of just want to get to where you're going, or you're thinking about, ooh, I pay by the, in aviation, a lot of times, if you rent an airplane, you pay by the point 1 hours, which is 6 minutes. If I shave off 3 minutes taxiing there and there, that'll save me a little money. But you don't want to be having any taxi mishaps, right? So, um, I guess what speed should you be taxiing? And that's one of the things that, as an instructor, though most of the books say that, oh, you're supposed to taxi at a brisk walking speed. Well, some airports you might have to taxi a whole mile to get out to the end of the runway to go take off. So at a walking speed, I know myself, to walk a mile takes me 20 minutes. So you don't really want to be doing walking speed and take 20 minutes. So there's a big debate about that. They say, should it be a running speed? Yeah, it should be about a running speed. And I asked one of my instructors, like, how do you teach it? I say, this is about right. He says, oh, I just look at the GPS, 10 knots. I was like, oh, yeah, that's pretty good. If you're going faster than 10 knots on your GPS, it will seem like you're going a little bit fast. So there you go. That's the magic number, 10 knots, which is 10 nautical miles per hour. If you didn't know about that stuff, that piloty kind of stuff. And so you also, you don't want to be going too fast because if you have a brake failure, your plane can be pretty uncontrollable depending on the design of it. If you have a cast-ring nose wheel, if you have a sloppy kind of nose wheel like a Cessna 172 with little bungee cords on it, it's not as responsive as a direct link nose wheel. Like, so the big jets, that's a direct link. So it's got little dampers and things on there to it's all cool, even if you lost it. And they can also use differential thrust if they want to kind of steer or anything like that. And they have thrust reversers if they want to help stop too. So, but on little airplanes, you got to watch that stuff. Don't go too fast. And, but if you're trying to, oh, here's another pro tip. This is super pro tip. In a little airplane, in a perfect world, you never touch the brakes unless the throttle is back at idle power. That's something that no one ever does. But if you do that, it's really noticeable. It's like, whoa, that's a pro. So there's your pro tip. And yeah, idle power, hit the brakes, and then go back to, usually it's like 1,000 RPM on your throttle. Okay, so there's that piloty kind of thing. And so far, the black marker has worked out pretty well. Let's keep going. Okay, number 2, and I will be getting to the secret of how those big jets stay on the center line. Okay, number 2. This, believe it or not, some people don't do this. Look out. Look out the window. Well, the thing is, what can happen on an airplane is it can happen in your car too, right? You're driving around and you want to fool around with what do they call them now? Infotainment systems, or used to be fooling around with the radio, but now it's a whole other computer thing. And yeah, so you're in there and you're driving along and you're looking down at the radio and you're fooling around, and then you look up, whoa, brake lights. So that can happen too in aviation. You can be fooling around with your GPS. You can fooling around doing, I don't know, backup frequencies for the radio or whatever. It is easier to, yeah, it's easy to be distracted anywhere in life, or even one time I saw a guy. The phone rang where I was working, and he said, "Hey, there's this thing that's like." I forget what was happening. Something was not wrong with his plane, but anyways, he was taxiing the airplane and called me up on his cell phone. And I said, "Where are you? Didn't you go out to go fly?" And he's like, "No, I'm taxiing out front right now." And I look out and I see this guy on his cell phone taxiing an airplane. Like, you get a ticket for that if you do it driving down the road. Distracted flying. Maybe it's a thing. Eventually, it'll probably be a thing, but there's a lot of distracting things. It's a pretty busy cockpit. So I don't know if you could enforce that even. It's hard to pull someone over to the side of a cloud or something like that. But I said, okay, just stop your. I was on the phone watching this guy taxi, and it was like, okay, stop your airplane. And I see the plane stop. I said, okay, now you can talk to me on the phone. So I didn't want him taxiing into, if you're not looking out the window, it doesn't take too long. You're off the center line. Are you starting to get into the grass? Are you going to take out a taxi light, runway light? Not the best. And another thing there too is that, well, I'll get to that a bit later. Okay, so watch out. See where you can look, but sometimes you can't always see all the way around your airplane. It's not like you got a rear view mirror. Some don't. Actually, most planes don't. I guess those old like Spitfires and Mustangs and stuff, they had a rear view mirror for seeing if someone's on their tail. Okay, so another thing we're going to talk about, it's really kind of I put it in the middle of my list because it's kind of boring, but it is a thing that you are tested on. And back when I was a guy that used to go out and do flight tests, I was an examiner for Transport Canada, and yeah, so we would have to see if they're doing the proper taxi wind inputs. And I won't really go into that too much because if you're a pilot, we'll say taxi inputs. Yeah, if you're a pilot, you should be doing this stuff. And everyone, as soon as they get their license, right here, taxi inputs, as soon as they get their license, they stop doing it and they get all lazy and stuff like that. So you do, there's a way of doing that, which will bore the audience. So I will not bore the audience. Okay, another one here is, are we going to be taxiing on the center line? Always taxi on the center line. So and I'll get into that and how to do it. Okay, center line. Center. I think I'll do the Canadian style, send RE instead of ER. Center line. There we go. Right over here. Keep it on that center line. And just, I was thinking about making the abbreviation of that. And if you ever go and you get into drafting, that's the term for center line. If it's a center of a, how does it go? Dot, line, dot. Something like that. So if you see that on your blueprint, that's the center of the piece, center line. And I just figured I'd throw that in there for the machinists watching. So, okay, if you stay on the center line, you're going to be safe. 99.99999% of the time, because it's measured out so that is the furthest distance from any obstacle, whether it's like the edge of a building or grass or something like that. So that's what you want the nose wheel of the airplane to be on there. And as soon as you get off that center line, now you're in no man's land, and it's kind of dangerous because let me get an airplane here to demonstrate. You get the KD-12X Mark II with the stagger wing design. Okay, now it's a straight wing design. But yeah, so if you are sitting here in the cockpit, we'll say this is the cockpit here, and you got the wing. So if you can imagine like the angle of you're up here, your eyeballs are here, and you can't see what's down here, right? Because it's getting blocked by the wing, right? So if this thing here, you're off the center line a little bit, you don't know if your wheel is going to be going into the grass. And if it's especially a big heavy plane, you're getting stuck. And then you're going to be all over Twitter and Instagram and social media. Look what happened to this guy. But yeah, if you you don't want to be doing that, especially in a big jet. And another thing there too, for smaller airplanes with a low wing design like the KD-12X Mark II, if there's any runway lights or anything, the taxiway lights here, you can't really see because it's blocked by the wing. You're up here. Here's your light down here. So I'm not a big fan of taxiing with the wing directly over top of a runway light. What I would do is if I have to do any turning where maybe I can't see the wheel or I can't see the runway light, you just do it in between the lights. So it's up here. You can turn around. You see the one here. You pass the other one. Your wing can go over the grass a bit and swing around like that. So watch out for that. If you can't see it, you have no idea if you're hitting anything. So that's how you do that. Now, how do you stay right on that center line? Look way up the road. So yeah, I will explain. Now, when I first started learning how to fly, I thought this was kind of a weird, I don't know, concept or something, but it makes sense. And this is how I kind of explained it to myself anyways. So if you're sitting in an airplane, you're kind of like in your car, right? You're sitting in the left seat. If it's just your regular average Joe Blow little airplane that's kind of, you sit side by side. So yeah, so you're going to be sitting here. Okay, let's put a couple seats. Okay, and we'll say the pilot is here, P. Okay, there's your airplane seats right there. I don't know if you can see that. That's the pilot seat. And you want that center line to go right. You want the nose wheel to be right on that center line. So there's the center line, but you figure that you're off center and you're thinking, I want to be a real perfectionist. But you don't really have to worry about that so much. And you would only be, I don't know, a couple feet off, but you want to be perfect because you're a perfect pilot, right? So all you got to do is look way up here. Oop, can I do an X? There we go. So you look way, way far ahead. And the amount, if you line up directly with that, the amount that your nose wheel will be off the center line will be pretty much negligible because you're looking, thousands of feet up there. If you do your little trigonometry here, like this little distance down there won't be anything. Might be a few inches if you're looking way, way down the road. So, or down the center line. That's the trick. Look far ahead. And I see Wrench popped in. Wrench popped in late, but that's okay. He's got the whole chat to himself. Yeah, no, Wrench. You got the whole play. It's just you and me, buddy. No one else showed up today. Must be boring during the week or something. Okay, so we are looking way down the center line, and that'll keep you right on it. And that's how the big jets do it too. You just further up there, you look. That works for a 777 or a 172. Okay, and our number five tip, superpilotish 5 tip. And this works for, I've done videos on this before. Here we go. Okay. Stop. You don't, if you don't know what's going on, just stop. You don't want to be, that can be, even if you're, say that somebody, they gave you a taxi clearance and you're like, oh, yeah, yeah. And maybe you might have to cross over another runway to get to the runway that's in use. And you'd be, um, yeah, you'd be like, can I cross this runway? Did I get clearance for that? And so just stop and ask. They will ask that. And I'll get I think you're right about that there, Ranch. We'll get to that one later. And yep, so if you're not sure, just stop it. And especially like if it's at night, unfamiliar airport, unlit, it can get pretty dark. So when in doubt, don't. And then another thing I wanted to bring up there too. Well, we'll do a little review, and but okay, so review here. Number one, watch your speed. So that would be because of brake failure, don't go more than about 10 knots. Seems to be about pretty reasonable. And there is no actual speed limit on any airport runway or anything. So you always see those trucks ripping down the runway doing, I'm out for a checking for birds, and they're going 100 miles an hour down the runway. So that's always kind of cool. And then for speed there too, I neglected to mention, if you are on like in a float plane, something like that, you have no brakes. So that's where you really want to keep it extra slow if you're on a float plane. You don't want to be banging into any docks or anything like that when you're trying to dock the plane. And also, if you're on skis, there's no brakes on skis either. So you got to kind of watch that. And but if you are on skis, you got to kind of watch it if you stop, because it's funny because your skis, if they stop, they'll just kind of freeze in place really quickly. So you're always creeping just a little bit. Okay, number two is look out the window. Don't be distracted by all the gadgets and forth lights and radios and all that other stuff. If you do have to fool around with the radios or your forth lights or anything like that, stop first, take care of that. And when you're taxiing, you're looking out, you can see everything. No surprises. Okay. Number three, don't forget your taxi inputs. That's what they taught you in class, and that's what you do. Pretty simple. And to keep it on the center line, number four, look way far ahead, and that will keep you safe 99.9999% of the time. And if unsure, stop. Shut the engine down if you have to. I mean, it's like if you you just do not want to damage an airplane. It gets, well, first of all, it's embarrassing. Oh, he was stupid. Well, but it can happen. Any accident can happen to anybody. But you don't want to be that guy, and or that guy, that pilot. And just stop if unsure, and don't be blowing through any hold clearances and stuff like that. Okay, so here is one. Okay, it's just me and Wrench in the chat here. So, and I was thinking about this, Wrench, that much of my audience is like non-pilots. So yeah, this one might not appeal to them. But what else we got here? Oh, here we go. Okay, so here we go. Here's a good one here too. I just read this super fast. So I know many planes steer with the brakes versus steering nose or tail. Does it really wear the brakes out? The owners always tell you to brake less to save the shoes. I rent. I'm not buying them. Yeah. I would say, ideally, if you're buying your own brake pads, then yeah, I know some people that are. I knew one pilot in particular. He would just try to never, ever, ever touch his brakes, and he still managed to I don't know, mess his plane up. But it's just like they're there to be used. It's a disposable cost of doing business. But I would say, as far as, and I didn't mention this, so I'm glad you brought it up, Wrench, is that when you are taxiing, you don't want to ride the brakes ever. Like, that's kind of one of the things I mentioned about, you should always have, if you're hitting the brakes, you should have the powered idle, so that way that the propeller and the brakes aren't fighting each other. That'll make your brakes last longer, but it'll also give you more stability if it's really wet runway or snow or icy runway. You'll be doing less slipping and sliding without that extra throttle. And okay, another thing there too is, if you have a specifically if you got like a really long taxi, if you're riding the brakes and riding the brakes and riding the brakes, then like the discs are getting hot. And then, like, that's the way, well, you're an engineer, Wrench, that the way that the brake disc works is that it takes all that movement, that kinetic energy, and transfers it through friction with the brake pads, and that gets turned into heat energy for the disc, and then it dissipates. So that's how that works. But so once that disc gets too hot because you're riding the brakes, then you don't have your brakes. That's the same thing about you see all these trucks that lose their brakes and stuff like that going down hills, because they just get hotter and hotter, and eventually they just can't dissipate that energy, and she's slipping and sliding down there too. So yeah, if you're renting, use what you got to do to rent. And that's, if you are renting a plane, that's all like right into the cost. It's like it's like, well, dude, if you didn't want people to I don't know, use up oil and brakes and gas and everything, well, it wouldn't be in the cost. You got to adjust your prices at the flight school or whatever. And here we go. Oh, everyone's done this too. Locking the wheels, bad for the tires. Oops. Yeah. If you're ever trying to, like, oh, I think I can make it off here, and then you lock them up because it's easy to do. You're in a hurry. And I've had some students do some amazing, like, absolutely epic lockups on wheels. And it's kind of funny because I was like, you make these bald spots on the tires and stuff. But yeah, I remember there was always this one turn that new students would take, and I'd always be ready on the brakes to catch it if it did happen. But yeah, it would be like if you're taxiing with a tailwind a little bit, so you're taxiing down to the end of the runway basically to turn around and fly into the wind. So you're taxiing with the tailwind, and then as soon as you start to turn, the wind will catch your tail and start pushing you around even more. So students will panic and just hold the brakes, and then you're screeching, doing some kind of Tokyo drift around the corner, and it makes a whole lot of noise. And I don't know, I always thought it was kind of funny. So anyways, okay, we got a specific question. All right, I usually charge money for ground briefings, but anyways, so is it worth it to brake to make the first turn off? Nah, I would say not. Just plan accordingly, I guess. And you can always turn around and do a U-turn on the runway or whatever. If you're flying at a controlled airport. I forget if you do or not. But the once you land on that runway, the entire length of that runway is yours, and the air traffic controllers can't do anything about it. That's you own that entire runway. You can do whatever you want. So if you could theoretically, I'm on the runway and they say exit at this exit, and you say no, I feel like cruising all the way to the end. They'll turn around and backtrack, or back taxi, as the Americans like to say. They won't like it, but you have the right to do that and say, I just thought it was safer, and they can't do a thing about it. There's no paperwork, no nothing, but you won't make you won't make friends in the control tower doing that. But yeah, it's very, very common for, you can't make the first turn off because it's just not safe enough. And it's not a big deal. There's no I don't know, no shame in blowing past the first turn off and just doing a U-turn and coming back. Nothing wrong with that. So, oh, so you're flying uncontrolled. Okay, I see that. Yeah. So, and if you are going to be doing anything strange at the uncontrolled airport, just get on the radio, tell everybody, and meet them for a burger afterwards or something like that. Okay. So that is about it for today's show. Thanks for showing up, Wrench. It's the Super Pilotish and Wrench show today in the chat. So, yeah, we'll just kind of see what day is today. Wednesday. Okay, so Friday's coming up. I will be back on Friday because I do this Monday, Wednesday, Friday at noon Eastern. And everybody out there, taxi safely, and we'll just kind of shut her down. So, thank you, one person, for watching. Bye.